Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome everyone to Moxie's Digital Engagement Benchmarks webinar. I have a few items to cover, and then we will get started. During this webinar, all lines will be muted to provide better sound quality for participants. We are recording the entire event, and the recording and related materials will be distributed to all participants via email tomorrow. We have reserved some time for Q&A at the end of this session. You can enter your questions in the WebEx chat panel, where you should already see some entries from me as the Moxie events host. You can enter those questions at any time, and I will queue them up for our presenter to answer at the conclusion of today's presentation. So let's get started. Today's presenter is Gareth Bray, Director of Best Practice at Moxie. Gareth, good afternoon there in the UK.
Hello. Thank you, Gillian. Hello to all of you, no matter which side of the pond you're on. I hope you're having a good day so far. So today I'm going to be taking a look at how the Moxie Concierge platform has benefited our customers and how those returns have been achieved through the use of the solutions that we have available. So firstly, as I know we have a mixed audience today, let me introduce you all to Concierge. As e-commerce professionals, we live and breathe the online customer journey. We understand it, we try to improve it, and we try to make it as convenient as possible for customers to engage with us across multiple digital channels. And those will include live chat, email, web self-service through Knowledge. But unless we are effectively there throughout that customer's journey, it becomes difficult for them to really know that we are there for them and really there for them to ask questions and be helped through the journey that they're continuing to go through at that moment. With Moxie Concierge, you can speak to your visitors and guide their decisions. We have the ability to understand a customer's behavior and the context by which they are moving through the site and the context at which they are in at that moment in time. Through our technologies, such as Engagement Mapper, we can build intelligent decisioning points at which we can step in and help the customer. Now those rules, essentially those engagement points, are built around the channels that you can see on the screen here. So through the use of web self-service, we can present information to people to help them, to nudge them along the journey as they're going through the site. That may then lead to the need to actually have a live conversation. So through the use of live chat, we have the ability to actually engage with the customer, speak to them, and answer any questions and guide them and help them as they are moving through the site. And additionally to that, we also have email. You know, it's not a forgotten channel. Customers still make use of it, and as you'll see later on through the use cases that I'll take a look at that our customers are seeing, it's still a heavily used way for customers to get information that they need to make the decisions as they go through the site. Now, of course, those channels are built up in the background and are serviced by the intelligent decisioning layer that is Concierge. Behind the scenes, we then have an analytics and management information capability so that you can better understand what's happening within the system. And it's that area that gives us the ability to understand the metrics that I'm about to show you. So let's take a look at some of the results that we're starting to see through the use of Concierge. Now, these are customer results that have been aggregated over a period of time, but will give you a great indication as to the reasons why Concierge has been so successful. So I've taken this first slide to look at some of the main reporting metrics that I'm sure you're looking at today. So the first one in the green circle there, revenue per engaged visit. What we're essentially looking at there is the revenue that we're receiving where an engagement has happened with a particular customer, compared with the revenue that you're seeing without an engagement with a customer. So you can see that where we are able to engage a customer through chat or providing them with knowledge, we can really help them, and at the end of the day, help you to increase the revenue that you're seeing coming through the organization. Conversion has always been the metric that is first looked at. And what we're seeing is an average of 25% conversion where we're engaging with customers. That, compared to what you're often seeing through just a standard journey across the website, really does increase your ability to improve the revenues that you're seeing going through your organization's site. Now, that's really looking at what we refer to as on-demand engagements, where the customer is coming to your site and they are saying, I want to engage with you. Now, where we bring proactive engagement into the mix, where essentially you're building those intelligent decision points and stepping in to say, hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, I want to speak to you, we see the conversion increase to up to 40%. So again, you can start to see that where we are engaging with customers, we can really drive the revenue that we're seeing throughout the organization. And then the traditional metric that's often measured, average order value. In exactly the same way, what we're doing here is measuring the engaged average order value against the average order value that you would see if a customer just went through the site. And again, good, solid increases to those values. The key to all of that is where we engage with a customer in a relevant, personal and contextual manner, we can really drive the way in which we're starting to increase the conversion and the value associated with the solution. Now let's take that down slightly and look at one of the most important weekends, or maybe even slightly longer. People are looking at Black Friday and Cyber Monday as almost a fortnight these days. But look at this really important area that I'm sure you're tracking within your business. Where we take it down to, and this was actually over the four-day weekend, Friday through to Monday, we were seeing average conversions rise up to 40% as an average. So you can start to see that we're obviously seeing an increase in engaged conversion. What you'll also notice is there has been an improvement in the proactive conversion, but not to necessarily the same degree as you would see from the average conversion. Now, part of the reason for that is that we're already, through the intelligent decisioning capability, targeting the right people with proactive engagement. So actually, even though your volumes might be increasing, the conversion is still there because we're targeting the right people at the right time as they go through the site. Interestingly, the maximum conversion percentage that we were seeing, 48%, was actually on Cyber Monday. We always talk about Black Friday. It's a Black Friday event, but actually what we started to see was that whilst traffic was extremely high earlier in the weekend, the most amount of conversion was happening on that last day. So we mustn't forget about engaging with customers later in that process. They might be visiting you on the Friday, but they might be engaging on a different day as they go through that process. So always key to remember, not just to look at one particular day. Increase in average order value, again, increased massively. So 166% increase between unengaged and engaged average order values. Looking at one more revenue-based metric, we've got uplift in the green box there. So what we're looking at here is the value of the shopping basket before an engagement and then after an engagement has happened. So essentially what we were seeing from an on-demand perspective was a 60% increase. So the customer's gone onto your site, they've looked at products, they've added products into their basket, they've then engaged with you in some way. Maybe they've had a chat with you, maybe they've read some information through the knowledge base, and what we then see is that the value that they convert with after that point is actually increased by 60%. So again, if you can actually get in front of someone and be that shopkeeper, that sales assistant that you would normally see if you went into a store, you can drive that added value. From a proactive perspective, the uplift went up a huge amount. What we're seeing there is that the customer is having some kind of struggle. The customer needs some kind of assistance. So if we have a targeted intervention, then we can grab that person and give them the information they then need to then add that into their basket and convert with that. What we're seeing is that the value between those areas increases because we can also start to look at upsell and cross-sell. Some of the use cases that I'll look at a little later on are really based around the ability for you to have a personal shopper light, I've labelled it as, the ability for you to speak to someone and say, well, actually, Mr. Customer, if you like this pair of jeans, how about this top to go with it? You can guide people through the site, you can push them to the pages where that particular product is, and that's where we can start to gain that improvement in the basket value. Another key metric is mobile. Now, this is one figure to do with the actual chat volumes that we're seeing via mobile devices. That is only going to increase. I was with a customer yesterday, and they were reporting 75 to 80% of all of their web traffic was from mobile phones. You know, we get at least a 50-50 split, if not much higher, as I just said there, being on mobile devices. We need to make sure that what we're offering to customers is available on mobile devices in the same way that it is on a desktop machine. And I'll show you how that might work in a few minutes. But we're not also only looking at the revenue figures that are associated with this as well. We're also looking at traditional contact center data as well, because yes, revenue creation is great, but we also need to look at how the costs are being dealt with within our businesses as well. So average handle time. For chats, we're looking in the region of 10 to 12 minutes. Now, that's often slightly longer than a telephone call. However, what we're also seeing is that most organizations are dealing with at least 2.5 chats as an average per agent concurrently. So that means that you can deal with multiple sessions compared to the one-on-one that you would have from a phone session standpoint, which means that you can deal with a lot more volume, you know, on those busy shopping days, Black Friday and so on. But it also means that you can reduce the costs because an online interaction is much cheaper than having to do that over the phone. And of course, knowledge usage is very key to this process as well. Now, these figures here come from the use of contextual knowledge, but also web self-service. And that could be a brand new deployment, that could be replacing a flat FAQ structure or something else within an organization. But what we're seeing is that if you provide people with the ability to self-serve, then they will go ahead and do that. So for example, 50% increase in self-service usage by putting that capability in front of people, and a 13% decrease in the number of calls that are coming to the business, which, as I alluded to a second ago, is going to reduce costs because that is a more expensive channel. So those are some of the results that we're starting to see. So how do we go about getting those results? Well, one of the key things that we need to understand is that customers need to be guided to these interactions. Over the years, we have been trained to look at the banners of websites, for example, the top headers, to look for a phone number, to look for a button to click for a help site. So as well as being able to provide quick, intuitive links into these areas, we need to provide them in different areas across the site. So we're using, for example, chat buttons in the header. We're using the concierge bell for people to gain access to information as they go through that process. And the idea here is to make it as easy as possible. If you don't make it easy, then people aren't going to come back. So we need to make sure that they can gain access to you when they need it, or when you understand that they need it through the proactive capabilities in the system. The other key thing here, as I mentioned on the last slide, is mobile. More and more of your customers will be using mobile as the first and possibly only way that they see your site. So we need to make sure that the interactions and the capabilities we're putting out there are available to people in mobile devices. Now, that's not just about mobile devices through the browser. as you can see on the example here, but it's also within your native apps. So you need to be able to make sure that as people move between your standard site and into the apps that you're driving them to as well, that the interface, the interaction works in the same way. It becomes consistent and it becomes something they become much more used to and much more willing to engage with as you go through. So let's take a look at some of the use cases. Now, I've started off with that with chat here, but what you'll see in a second is that there is a complete switch between the way in which email is used to the way in which chat is used. You'll see here that we're looking at 60% of the use cases and the interactions that we get through chat are to do with pre-sale questions. They're questions around assisting with the fit of a particular product, availability questions. You know, can I get this in a size 2? Can I get this in a a UK 11? You know, those sorts of questions. Helping with promotions and voucher code issues is also a massive one. So what we're seeing is that people are using chat to quickly gain access to you as an organisation and have those questions answered as quickly as possible. On the other side of that, we're then looking at around 40% being dealt with within a post-sale environment. Although looking at technical issues there at 10%, assisting with website issues and potentially checkout and payment problems could also be seen as a pre-sale activity. What we need to remember is that we are servicing the customer no matter where they are in the cycle. So all of these channels need to be available to customers to help them in whatever format that you want to allow them to speak to you. And that gives you the ability to be able to retain customers as well as gain new customers as you go through that process. And the beauty of chat is that it's really well regarded. 93% ratings with chat services being rated as excellent. When you go up to proactive, it's the same figure because chat's involved, but actually in some cases it's higher than reactive chat, especially when we are using the concierge proactive capability, because we're actually engaging with people at the point of need and doing that in such a way that the customer is going to engage with you, which I'll come on to in a second. The other thing as well is that this customer feedback, this customer satisfaction information, is done on a much higher volume than you would potentially see from your website feedback. In the region of 50% completion of post-interaction surveys compared to single-digit potentially when you're talking about website feedback. So it's also a great way to get a better understanding from your customers as to how they're engaging with you, your agents, but also your website as a whole as well. Now, as I said, there is a complete flip when it comes to email. From an email perspective, it's still widely used. It's not a channel that's disappearing, but it is used for mostly post-sale communications. Chat is there as a live interaction point. It's there when I need it there and then. Whereas sometimes post-sale queries, people have got time to wait for an answer. Now, I say they've got time to wait for an answer, but we still need to manage the expectation that the customer has as to reply. And we need to keep that as low as possible. In this day and age of messaging, of live chat and so on, people want answers quickly. So we still need to be able to cater for that. So we still need to be able to track against very manageable but low SLAs when it comes to email response. Now, of course, it's not just being used for post-sale. Those use cases that we saw on the chat slide are also being used within email as well, just to a lower degree. Similar sort of idea from a customer satisfaction standpoint. 88% rated as excellent for email. Again, high acceptance rates for communications coming into the system. So always very key to make sure that you're looking at this from a multi-channel strategy standpoint. Having chat out there is great, but it isn't always going to fit every use case that you might have that goes across your site. And then we have knowledge. Knowledge for a lot of organizations traditionally has been about web self-service. Being able to give people the ability to go to a help and support portal and gain access to information. And that is absolutely a valid use case still. But what we're seeing is that customers, in the same way they want to access you in journey for chat, they also want to be able to service themselves in the journey they're in. So that's why the introduction of contextual knowledge through the Concierge platform really gives you the ability to help customers and keep them in the journey that essentially they and you want them to be in, which, you know, in most cases, and as we've been talking about, is completing a transaction with you. Contextual knowledge gives you the ability to provide guidance and pointers to people. So, you know, a piece of information about a product, maybe an error message is being thrown on a page. Help them through these things that are generally seen as struggle points. And by helping them through self-service means that they can get it done quickly without your intervention. And that, again, as we said, will increase customer satisfaction, and it'll also reduce the costs because you're not actually having to deal with that person in a live manner. Customers, as we've seen, will abandon if information isn't readily available. If I go to a particular page on the site and I can't find what I'm looking for, a lot of the time I haven't got time to mess around looking for information. I will just go elsewhere. I'll go to another brand, I'll go to another website. So if we can, again, understand the behavior, understand from your other analytics where customers are dropping out and why they're dropping out, we can step in and give them the information they need. Now, both of those points, the contextual knowledge and web self-service, is backed up, or the use of those two is backed up by this stat from Forrester. 70% of customers prefer self-service as their first choice to get questions answered. You know, people want to do it. So if we can give them access to that information, then all the better. The other piece to that particular puzzle is agent knowledge. It shouldn't be forgotten that the information that we're presenting to customers should also be available to agents. Agents then have the ability to review what the customer may have been told, but then also have other information that they can use if self-service hasn't answered the question and they escalate through to a live chat session or a phone call. They have more information, the same information, to assist customers as they're going through that process. And because they've got the same information, the consistency of messaging will continue, and the customer satisfaction increases because they're not getting told different things depending on where they are through the site. Now, I've talked a lot about proactive, and proactive chat, for example, has been around for some time. Proactive knowledge, not so much. But what we've seen is that we need to be much more contextual. We need to be much more personal in the way in which we engage with customers using proactive. It needs to be less generic. And if we are less generic, as we've seen from the figures that we've seen from our customers, that will drive engagement. And engagement drives additional metric increases around conversion and so on and so forth. So we need to potentially move away from this sort of idea, the catch-all message that gets used on every single rule in the site. You know, need help, have questions, chat with us. Well, that's great. And if I need to, then okay, I'll do that. But what that isn't saying to the customer is, we know what your problem is at this point. We know how we can help you. What we need to do with our proactive messaging is be specific. Be specific around each individual rule you have within the system so that the messaging will drive someone to actually engage with you. That's why we're starting to see higher engagement rates, because we're basically saying to the customer, okay, we understand that you've seen this error message 3 times. We understand that this might be a point at which you're going to drop out or you need some other assistance. Let us step in and help you. And again, that proactive capability isn't just about chat. It's also about the other channels that we have within the product. So being able to put the right piece of information at the right time will really drive that capability. So where have we seen that proactive really work for our customers? Where we see the highest value, So the most amount of revenue being pulled into the system is through helping with product selection assistance. Some of the rules that are being used out there are things like the number of products being viewed in a particular session. Maybe it's going back to the same product page on multiple occasions within the same visit. It's also targeting add-ons, as I call it here, complete the look. You know, you often will have a particular item, but then this has been bought with these other items in the site. But if you can again step in and have a conversation with someone, then you can say, oh, okay, well maybe this pair of jeans and this top, but actually what about this hat to go with it, or this pair of shoes that maybe isn't on the site at that moment in time. So it's, as I mentioned, personal shopper light. You know, we're not necessarily offering a personal shopper, but we are offering the ability to speak to someone who knows the range and knows what's on offer. The highest engagement rates comes from assistance during struggle events. So account related, login details are incorrect, maybe their account's been blocked or their password's not working. Promo error codes, this is a big one. People will come in and they will think that they've got a promo code that works, maybe it doesn't. And stepping in and helping customers at that point will stop them from just going elsewhere. If you can step in, you will engage with that customer, and maybe you'll have another offer for them, or maybe you can just, you know, help them out so they'll still convert anyway. So that's where we're starting to see, you know, high engagement rates. Lack of information on support and FAQ pages, using contextual capabilities there to step in and help, and also contact page deflection. One of the highest engaged ones is actually using proactive chat capabilities on a contact us page. So again, by dealing with someone there and then in a cheaper channel than phone, will, as we said, drive customer satisfaction because they're not waiting, and also reduce costs. And that's where we see a lot of engagement with customers. And then finally, the highest conversion rate is often within the checkout area. Backing out of payment pages, for example, and again, promotion errors are really areas that drive the highest conversion rate. The customer's almost there, and they just need that last little helping hand to get over the line. So if we can step in, then we can help out with the customer at that particular point. So thank you very much for listening. If we have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
We do. We have several that have come in. If you guys have more, we may not have time to answer them all today, but you are welcome to enter them in the chat panel through WebEx, and anything that we do not answer live in the next few minutes, we can answer offline after the event. Let's start, though, with a question that I got from a couple of people. Can you further explain the difference between what you called contextual knowledge and web self-service? There was a slide where you had both of those. I think it was slide 9, the knowledge use cases. Gareth? Yes,
yeah, absolutely. So contextual knowledge is essentially using the concierge platform to provide snippets of knowledge, so FAQs, for want of a better term, in journey. Traditionally, what you see is that if I need an answer to a question, I would need to hit a help button, and that would take me to a portal where I have that information to hand. And that essentially is taking me out, as I said, of the journey that I was in originally. So contextual knowledge keeps the customer in the journey they're in and provides them with the information through a concierge widget.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And of course, if anyone wants to see it in more detail, if you'll switch back to the Q&A slide, Gareth, there are some ways, of course, you can reach out to us. You can even respond to any of the emails that you've received about this, and we can set something up. The other one, and probably our last one before we break up, but I know this was a kind of hot button issue that you talked about, mobile. Across mobile interactions, do our customers, this is the question, do our customers see any difference between interactions that happen on mobile versus desktop, for example, length of time that people spend in chat, questions that are asked, that kind of thing?
I don't think we necessarily see a difference in the questions that are asked. Essentially, the website is the same whether you're in mobile or whether on the desktop. Right. So I don't necessarily think the questions that are asked are particularly different. There is the potential that a chat session will take slightly longer in mobile. because obviously, yeah, we're all pretty good with our thumbs these days typing, but yeah, from that perspective, there might be an extra 30 seconds in the conversation, but I think in terms of capability, it's very much the same.
Agree, and I remember one time we have a video on our site where American Eagle talked about, we've plugged in and the questions they're asking for styling choices and what goes with what. It's all the same thing that they're asking on desktop as they are from a mobile perspective. As far as people expect to be able to do the exact same things on mobile that they do on desktop, and you kind of hit on that as well. So I think that wraps us up. Gareth, thank you so much. This is good information. A lot of people asked for the slides, which of course we will share tomorrow, as well as the recording for anyone that was late or missed it. As mentioned, we also welcome the opportunity to discuss our best practices and our insights with you further. You can respond to any of the emails you receive from us or through the channels that you see there on your screen, and we'd be happy to discuss further. Of course, you can try out Concierge for yourself on our website at gomoxie.com. Thank you again for your participation, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Have a nice day.